One, two, three. YouTube is live. We are checking on Rumble, X, LinkedIn. Says we're active over here. Facebook, we are active. We're just waiting for LinkedIn to go active. So we know we're good on there. TikTok looks like we are active. Instagram, we are active. Let me get my comment pinned on IG, and then we will get into it. There we go. Let's wait for LinkedIn to activate here. We activated on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me make sure this one's good. Turn the live on. What we're talking about today, we didn't finish talking about Project 2025 yesterday, so we're going to finish talking about it here today because there was so much that Project 2025 basically truth checked themselves against some of the things being said about it/them, the people who put together Project 2025. I told y'all today we would finish talking about this, and then we will talk about Make America Healthy Again, which is RFKJ's plan. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So I already gave y'all an intro to this. So if you didn't see my live yesterday, I talked about this, which was Project 2025, which many of you heard that this was allegedly going to be Donald Trump's plan if he won the election. And the Harris campaign used this as a scare tactic and said, well, if you vote for Donald Trump, he's going to do Project 2025. You should go look at what Project 2025 says, because all these terrible things that they're going to do to destroy America or make things worse for you. And they pushed this a lot significantly during their campaign that Project 2025 is going to be terrible for Americans or for certain Americans. And they got the message out. Everybody knew about the concept of Project 2025. Most people didn't read it or go to their website. I did not read the whole thing. It's 1,000 pages, but I did go to their website, and they have a page on here where they are truth checking, as they say, the things that were said about the program. So if you didn't catch my live yesterday, I went over a bunch of this yesterday. So if you have a question about something I already addressed, you can watch the replay on YouTube. You can find that replay on YouTube. By the way, any of you watching me on any app other than YouTube, make sure you subscribe to me on YouTube, because my entire back catalog of anything video based is found on YouTube, or except my courses. The courses you can't get on YouTube, but back catalog is all on YouTube. My YouTube, just look on my name, Dre Baldwin. I'm very easy to find. I got literally 13,000 videos on YouTube. Also, make sure you follow me on at least more than one social media platform, because anything can happen on any one of these platforms. You know that they have their own rules, and you can't tell them what to do. It's their platform. You're on their land. So if something happens, make sure you can find me in another place just to make sure I'm still alive. All right. So make sure you follow me in more than one place, whatever app you're following me on now. And by the way, my lives, I'm on 7 different platforms right now. So whichever one you're watching me on, I'm also talking to 6 other platforms. So when you see me kind of looking at different cameras, it's because I'm talking to more than one platform at the same time. Right in front of me is the Instagram. Over here to my right is TikTok. And over here to my left is multiple streams. We got LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Rumble, and it's one more, YouTube. All right. So all that said, folks, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books on 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we help people perform at their best. We'll do it consistently and produce more results. But the main thing that people say to me when I ask people who I work with, because we work with people from a lot of different industries, from health to food to clothing to finance to music to media and everything in between. Main thing that people say is, Dre, I like the fact that you're straight to the point, you're blunt, you're no nonsense, no BS, no fluff, and you keep it real, tell it like it is. Those are the main things that people say they like most about how my style is not necessarily about the subject specifically. But if you listen to my stuff and consume some of my content, you get a pretty good idea of the things that I talk about and that I can help you with. And you can always go to the link in my bio or in the metadata, wherever you're watching, is different everywhere, called workonyourgameuniversity.com. And that's where you can find out more about me. So let's get into What we're going to talk about again today is Project 2025. Brittany, I see you in here. Good morning. Thank you for being in here. Brittany's our moderator, so she's going to check on this. So just a comment right here from Melanie. Sandy Toes says his newest pick is from the WWE. No, she was actually an administrator, and I forget what she was doing, but let me look that up because there are many people saying this, and this is the way that the news media fools a whole bunch of you. And let me find it, because I saw people talking about that on social media the other day, and a lot of articles came out from this. And this is, what's this woman's name? She is, what is her name? Linda McMahon. Yeah, so I think she was married to Vince McMahon, I'm guessing. Is that who she was connected to? She's a wrestling billionaire because she's connected. I guess she's either the daughter or the wife of Vince McMahon, but she had another job. And they only talk about the people who don't like Trump. They were talking about this woman like, oh, she's from the WWE. How is Trump picking somebody from his cabinet who's from the World Wrestling, what is it called? What does WWE stand for? World Wrestling Entertainment, I guess what it's called. She used to be the administrator of the Small Business Association, Small Business Administration. Did y'all know that? So people talking about she's from the WWE. Yeah, she's a former president and CEO of the WWE. WWE is $1 billion company, folks. So people saying Trump picked somebody from the WWE, like this is a bad thing. He picked somebody who was the CEO of $1 billion company. Does this person maybe know something? Possibly, maybe, just a chance. And again, people are framing it. The media did this. It's not you all who are making the comments. The media framed this as if, oh, you pick somebody from the WWE. That's just more affirmation that Trump's an idiot and this whole administration is going to be a zoo. She was the CEO of $1 billion company, number one. The WWE is a big business. Secondly, she was the administrator for the Small Business Administration. All right, that's who she was. And I'm looking at her Twitter profile right now, and she's the chair of the board at America First Policy Institute. So this is similar to the people who made Project 2025. It's a group of people who basically come up with policies and ideas that they pitch to conservative politicians and say, hey, maybe you want to use this, maybe you want to do that. There's a whole business around this, and I explained a lot of that yesterday. So let me go over that really quickly here today for those who weren't here yesterday. Project 2025 is not Donald Trump's plan. He has said that's not his plan. Now, do I think he knew that these guys existed? Yes, I think he knows they exist. Now, is this his plan? No, I don't think it's his plan. And at the same time, since so many people are talking about it, what we're doing is looking on their website. I'll show you where I'm looking right here on my phone. This is project2025.org. This is their site from where Project 2025 is. And they have a page that's /truth. So that website /truth, where they basically are truth checking, not fact checking, but truth checking everything that got said about them is not actually true. And they are basically providing you context as to what got said was actually true and not true. And then they're explaining why it's true or not. Now, again, Project 2025, the actual proposal is 1,000 pages long. You can read it if you want. Most people did not read it. And if you don't like Trump, then you took it as negative. And if you do like Trump, then you hopefully want to hear somebody explain it in their own words as to what they actually are about. That's what I'm trying to do here. And again, they have some things they say are true, some things they say are false. We did half of this yesterday. We're going to do the other half here today. All right, everybody got that? And then I'm going to answer questions and comments at the end. So if you happen to be on any app other than TikTok, you can just post your comments while I'm talking because I'll be able to scroll through and see it. If you're on TikTok, if you want me to see your comment, you might want to wait until I get to the comments because there's so many notifications that come through on TikTok that I can't see anything that you're posting right now. I will not see it by the time I get to the comments because it's going to cut off. TikTok won't even let me see it. So let's pick up where we left off. The first one, and again, this is the Truth Check page on 2025's website. They say cut military benefits for veterans and service members, including housing, TRICARE, retirement, and secondary education. So this is all about the military and the veterans because people are saying, again, people who don't like Donald Trump, that he has some plan where he's going to cut anything that could give benefits to military veterans. Project 2025's webpage says, truth check, false. This is not true. Their explanation is their plan makes no cuts to any veteran benefits. This is right here on their site. They say they make no cuts to veteran benefits. However, it does propose reforms to the VA system to deliver improved care in a more efficient and timely fashion to veterans. So basically, they want to improve the system, not stop giving any type of benefits to the system. The project's plans are to improve the VA and modernize the VA. And they say, going on, I'm reading off of their site, by the way, this is not my words, this is their words. The VA needs more aggressive recruitment of doctors, more mental health professionals, more staff to meet the urgent needs of overburdened care centers. VHA centers should be required to see more patients every day. All medical system centers should consider having more weekend hours and Saturday hours to meet the excess capacity and the delay in care for veterans. This is what they're saying. The VA should improve the timeliness of their claim adjudication. Any of you ever been in a health system, even if you're not a veteran, and you know you putting in a claim like insurance, how long it takes to actually get a response and then get whatever you're supposed to get, it takes forever. So what they're saying is they want to make that better for veterans. And the VA should develop a new commitment plan to complete a veteran's first disability claim within 30 days. So this is what they say they're actually going to do. They are not ending benefits for veterans. Everybody got that? Now, again, this is right off of their website. So moving on, that's all they say about veterans, just one point. Now, the next two sections that we got to address is going to take the bulk of our time here today, actually three of them. One is marriage and family. The other one is healthcare, and the other one is, another one is education. It was a bunch of them. All right, I didn't even see these headers they blending in with the rest of the topics. So let's get to it. We got a lot to get to. All right, so I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly. Y'all listen fast so I don't have to talk slow. Marriage and family. So first one is ending no-fault divorce. They say false. They're not going to end no-fault divorce. Divorce is not even mentioned in Project 2025. So we ain't got to talk about that. It's not even in the document. End marriage equality. I don't know what this even means. They say that's also false. Oh, so what they're talking about is people of the same sex getting married. That's not discussed also in Project 2025. Again, according to, it's not even in the document, they say. So it calls for the protection of faith-based grant recipients who maintain support for traditional definition of marriage. And that's all they say. We ain't got to talk about that much. Next, complete ban on abortions without exceptions. False. So this is one that was huge. This was basically the whole Harris campaign. This was the foundation of the Harris campaign, that Trump wants to stop you from being able to do that, and we want to give you the right to be able to do it. The language game that the Harris campaign played, I explained this yesterday, was that they were saying, well, Kamala would say this out of her mouth. Donald Trump wants the federal government to have a say in what you can and can't do with your body, that's a language game in and of itself, because it's not what you do with your body. Because for a woman to conceive and get pregnant, you already made a decision of what to do with your body. You allowed a man into it. That's how you got pregnant. So you already made a decision. You already made a choice. The choice that they're trying to reframe this as is you get to choose what to do with your body after you conceived a child and there's a life living inside your body. That's what you're doing with the life inside your body. It's not just what you're doing with your body. That's a language game that has been sold to a lot of women. There are probably some of you women listening to this who have bought into this, but it's nonsense because, again, I just explained, you already made a choice. How'd you get pregnant? All right, that was the choice right there. All right, you getting pregnant, you made a choice that led to some actions that led to you being pregnant. That was the choice. Now you have a child inside of you. Now that is not just about you. Now it is a choice that you get to make, but it's not just about you. The framing here, the false framing, is that this is just the woman's choice individually just by herself. Well, first of all, there's a man who has a say in that life that's inside of the body because he's the one that put what was necessary in there for you to get pregnant. All right, you couldn't do that by yourself. This is not the Immaculate Conception. All right, there was a man involved. So that's his shit. That's his child, whether you like the man or not, was an accident or not. That is his child. And secondly, somehow, some way you got pregnant. There's a life in there. All right. So there's three individuals involved. You, who allowed the man in, the man who came into you, and the life of the child that is now inside of you. That's three entities, not just you. So this is not my body, my choice. That's a false frame because it's not just you. Again, I just explained three entities involved. And if you happen to be religious, then you could say you're a higher being, whatever you call that. You could say four entities involved. So this whole framing of abortion being my body, my choice is a false frame in and of itself. But back to what I was saying, Kamala was saying, and she said this many times, Donald Trump wants the federal government to control what you can and can't do with your body, whereas we want to give you full freedom as to what you can and can't do with your body. That's a tricky language game that she was playing, a very slick one, because a lot of people didn't catch it. And we already know, if you just think critically, Donald Trump, what did he do? He removed the federal government's say over abortion by striking them. Well, he didn't do it, but he put new justices on the Supreme Court. They struck down Roe versus Wade, and now abortion is a state level thing instead of a federal thing. So in other words, Donald Trump took the federal government out of the situation. What Kamala was proposing was that she's going to put the federal government back into the situation and have control over it by basically giving a lot of women, I guess some women, what they wanted, which is the ability to have abortions as much as you want. The way that she was planning on doing this, according to her supporters, was that she would win the election, then possibly, hopefully, and this is all like speculative because there's no guarantee this would happen, that sometime during her 4 years, 2 justices will leave the Supreme Court. She would replace the conservative justices that leave with liberal justices, and then they would go and look at the Roe versus Wade Dodd's case again, and then they would basically reinstitute abortion being a federal thing. So this requires several things to happen. And any of you familiar with Occam's razor? All right, the more assumptions you're making into an assertion, the lower the quality of the assertion. So the assertion is Kamala's going to be able to she's going to make it federalized that you can have as many abortions as you want, as opposed to what Trump did. First of all, that would require her winning the election, which she didn't win, but let's assume that she won. Then it means 2 people have to leave the Supreme Court that happen to be conservative. What's the guarantee that that's going to happen? All right, Supreme Court is for life. You're there for as long as you want to be. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg was there until she passed away. So no one has to leave the Supreme Court at a certain time. So there's no guarantee that a conservative justice would leave the Supreme Court just because Kamala is president. And I don't know the justices on the Supreme Court, but I would bet, y'all tell me what y'all think. I think if you're a conservative Supreme Court justice and you're thinking about retiring, but then a liberal president wins the election, you might hold on for 4 years just to not let them replace you with a liberal justice. I don't know if they think that way. This is just a guess. This is a theory of mine, that if I'm a conservative justice, I might hold on to my spot. I might hold on for 4 more years just so they can't replace me with a liberal person. And if I'm a liberal person, like right now, Trump is president, maybe I'll just keep holding on as long as I can. And hopefully a Democrat replaces the president next, and then I'll leave. So then they can replace me with a liberal justice. I don't know if the justices think like that, but I'm just throwing that theory out there because again, Ruth Bader Ginsburg held on for as long as she could and then she got replaced by, I think that was Trump who got to replace her seat, the whole point is she stayed on. That's the point that I'm making here. So the second assumption was that 2 people are going to leave the Supreme Court. That is not a guarantee. And the third assumption is that even if that happens, that the Supreme Court is going to go look at this case all over again that they just decided on 2 years ago. They're going to go look at this case all over again and reverse the decision that they just made 2 years ago. I don't think so. And the next assumption, the fourth assumption here, and the more assumptions you have in any assertion, the more the trickier it is and the more flimsy the assertion. The fourth assumption is that just because you replace conservative justices with liberal justices, that all of a sudden they're going to reverse the decision. That's not going to happen. First of all, for y'all to understand how the Supreme Court works, when you are the newest member of the Supreme Court, is the lowest ranking person on the court. So even if Kamala did replace 2 conservative justices with 2 liberal justices, those people have the least amount of say-so of everybody who's on the court because they're the ones who just came in the latest. So these 3, let's assume 3 liberal justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's there right now. She's the last one to join. She's at the bottom of the totem pole right now. If 2 conservatives leave and 2 liberals come in, now you got 3 liberal justices all at the bottom of the totem pole amongst the Supreme Court. They have the least amount of say-so. And they're going to get a case reversed from just 3 years ago, because assuming it's 2025 from 3 years ago, really? There's a lot of assumptions made there. And I say false. That's not going to happen. So anyway, Project 2025, back to what we're talking about here. They say it is not that they want to ban abortions without exceptions. They say that we call for the government to comply with laws that prevent federal funding of abortion. This is their website that I'm reading. It also calls for federal support for alternatives such as adoption, such as there's a company called Preborn. And when someone's thinking about getting an abortion, Preborn kind of tries to coach them into keeping a baby for some reason. Either keep your own baby, give it up for abortion, but don't abort the baby. So that's what Project 2025 says. Moving on. Next point, they say banning contraceptives. These are all things that people have said about Project 2025, and they're truth checking whether it's true or not. Banning contraceptives, they say false. Nothing in their document says anything about banning or restricting contraception, so we ain't got to talk about it. Banning IVF, false. IVF is not mentioned anywhere in the document. Again, 1,000-page document, it says it's not even mentioned. So all these things that the Harris campaign and her paid influencers were telling you they were going to do in Project 2025. These things are not even in the document at all. And this is on their website. Next, condemning single mothers while promoting only quote unquote traditional families. False. Well, how are they even going to do this? You can't condemning. That's not a policy. But anyway, they say that a future HHS secretary they suggest this, replace the policies of the Biden administration that promote the alternative agenda, let's call it the flag agenda, we'll just call it that for, I don't want to say the wrong word on TikTok, and promote that agenda, that subsidize single motherhood, that decentivize work and penalize marriage with policies that instead, thank you for that heart. I think that was, who was that? Alicia, thank you. And instead, replace it with policies that encourage marriage, work, motherhood, fatherhood, and nuclear families. So let's talk about this one right here. So this whole concept, and they say they want to replace the policies of the Biden administration. Technically it is the policies of the Biden administration because that's the presidency, that's the administration that's active right now. However, this didn't start with the Biden administration. They're just furthering this. This started with Lyndon Baines Johnson back in the 1960s. So Black folks, y'all should know this. If you don't, you should understand it. And I'm talking about this on a high level. I'm not going to go into deep detail because that could be a whole book. But Lyndon Baines Johnson basically created some policies, and he has some ideas that led the policies back in the 1960s of his whole idea was we need to level the playing field for all Americans. So we need to look at, because 1960s was a tumultuous time. Any of you who was, you had to be, how old would you have to be? My parents were born in the 60s. So you had to be like in your 70s or 80s. Listen to me right now. If you could really like remember the 60s. Now, all of us could read about it, but to remember it, you had to be in your 70s or 80s. So at that time, what did we have happen in the 60s? You had the civil rights movement. You had Martin Luther King murdered. You had Malcolm X. You had JFK. You had all of these things happening in the 1960s, and Lyndon Baines Johnson became president when JFK was assassinated. And he decided that we need to level the playing field, and they came up with several things that started with, well, the birth of the things that became affirmative action, now known as diversity, equity, and inclusion. Affirmative action became DEI, and that was supposed to help minorities out. Specifically started with Black people, but then now it's expanded to people who are not even Black, expanded to other groups. Y'all know who they are. And then it was college, also the giving loans for people to go to college. I don't know if y'all know this, but there was a time when to go to college, you just had to pay. And if you didn't have the money, you just didn't go to college. That's why a lot of people from back in that era didn't go to college, because if they didn't have the money, you just didn't go. There was no way to get a loan to go to college. And then they started get loans to go to college. And then they created this big bubble. And right now, colleges make a lot of money because the government and the banks are giving people as much money as you want to go to college. And you can't use that money for anything else. And if you ever wondered, just speaking of this on a side note, why will a bank give you, when you're 18, the bank will give you $200,000 as a loan to go to college, but they won't give you even $20,000 as a loan to do anything else because you don't have credit history. You don't have any collateral. You have no reason for the bank to believe you can pay them back. So they wouldn't even give you $2,000, let alone $20,000, let alone $200,000, but they'll give you $200,000 just to go to school. All right, what if the government just said, you know what, when you're 18, we'll give you $200,000. You can do whatever you want with it. How many people would take it and go to school with it? You might start a business. You might use it to invest in yourself. You might just put it into some stocks or some bonds or some crypto or whatever you might do. But the government will only give you that much money at that age with no credit history, no collateral, no background, no nothing. They will only give it to you to go to college. That's why the college debt bubble is expanding. And this is all a big scheme. It's a scam. And there's a book called The Debt Trap. I mentioned this book a couple of weeks ago. It's called The Debt Trap, written by Josh Mitchell. Brittany, can you put that in the comments? It's called The Debt Trap by Josh Mitchell. And the book is all about the college loan situation and how people are getting into these deep financial debt just to get a college degree. And they're not able to get themselves out of it after all these years. But anyway, not even my topic. Lyndon Baines Johnson started this. Joe Biden has just continued it. This was not started by Joe Biden. All right, he's just continuing it. And the whole concept, the other thing I meant to mention, Lyndon Baines Johnson, welfare. This became another thing. Welfare was another thing. And the general idea of how welfare worked, for those of you who don't know, if you're in the Black community, you should know this, because it's the effects of it are still affecting us to this very day, is that the welfare system basically incentivized a woman to not have a man in the house, because that's the way you can get the welfare. If there was a man living in the house, you could not receive welfare. If there's a man living in a house, that means you and the man, or just the man or somebody, had to go work to make money. But if the man's not in the house, then you could receive government assistance. But if there's a man in the house, the government will cut off your assistance. And what happened is a lot of Black families became single parent families, usually the mother without the father, because the government incentivized, we'll give you money if there's no man at home. But if there's a man at home, we won't give you money, even if you're in the same situation. So if a man and a woman are broke and they're living on $200 a month, the government won't give you money. But if the man leaves the house and you're broke and you're living on $200 a month, the government will give you money. That was and again, I'm being very high level here, keeping it general, but that's the incentive that the government created. And this really affected, it may affect other communities as well, but I'm Black, so I'm speaking from the Black experience. It affected the Black communities a lot because it created a whole lot of single family homes by incentive, not because Black people don't want to stay together and be families, but because people were incentivized. And when you incentivize human beings to do a thing, even the thing that is in the long term against their self-interest, people will still do it. People will do things that hurt them in the long run. They'll do it in the short run, even though it hurts them in the long run, because you gave them an incentive to do it. That this is just human nature. Doesn't say anything about a particular group of people. And this is what happened with the welfare system. This is all the brainchild, again, of Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now, he wasn't, depending on who you ask, I don't know Lyndon Baines Johnson, but depending on who you ask, I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't trying to hurt Black people with these policies. I don't think he was. I think he really believed two things. Number one, that he was trying to help Black people. And number two, that by doing this and making sure everyone understood that it's the Democratic Party that is doing this thing for you, Black folks, that would lead to Black people voting Democrat for the next 100 years. And did it work? I would say it did. So when I get on these lives and I talk about things like this, and I mention things like what I just explained. Like, I haven't told you all, I have no political affiliation. I'm not part of any political party. I'm not MAGA. I'm not Biden. I'm not affiliated to any political party. But when I say things like this, a lot of Black people and some white people who don't know how to stay out of business is not theirs, they'll jump into conversation and say, oh, it sounds like you're a Trump supporter. It sounds like you're MAGA. Well, you definitely voted for Trump. Like, I'm just pointing out things that are logically accurate. You can see these things. You can go back and read books about all of these things. And this was, again, the whole point was, I think LBJ believed he was actually helping Black people by doing these things. And he wanted to get, at the same time, because he's a politician, these people are not dumb, we want to make sure we tether Black people to Democrat. We want them to know all this stuff we're giving them, these great handouts, are from the Democrats, and that's going to keep them Democrat. And again, how many of you Black people were raised to be Democrat or taught to be Democrat? Or if you come out and say anything against the Democratic candidate, the party, their policies, etc., you get attacked not by white people, but by other Black people, because you have the audacity to speak out against the Democrats. How many of you Black folks have had that happen? Please put the word me in the chat. And you white folks who are listening to this, just look at the comments and see how many people say it, especially on TikTok. That's where I'm getting the majority of my comments. So put the word me in the chat if you're a Black person. And if you ever criticize the Democrats or anything the Democrats do, you get attacked by other Black people. This happens. This happens all the time. Why? Because Black people were raised. This goes back to my parents' generation. They were born in the 60s. They were raised to be Democrat because look at all these great things the Democrats have done for us. This was the hustle. And again, this is not a partisan point. Right? This is what they were trying to do. This is on purpose, and it's still working. Here we are 60 years later, it still works. So anyway, back to what Project 2025 says. So y'all see people in the comments, they're telling you. So Project 2025 says that these are the things they mentioned: promoting the rainbow agenda, subsidizing single motherhood. That's what I mean. Welfare was subsidizing single motherhood. In other words, incentivizing you to be a single mom because we're going to give you stuff just because you're a single mom. All right, that's a bad idea because what it does is it destroys a nuclear family. And you all remember that group called Black Lives Matter, that scam called Black Lives Matter. All right, what was the main thing that they said on their about page, if y'all don't remember? So everybody remembers Black Lives Matter, right? I mean, they still technically exist, but they gotten really quiet over the last few years. So Black Lives Matter basically started in 2013 when the Trayvon Martin situation happened. And there's an alternative story to the Trayvon Martin situation. If you don't know about it, you can look it up. It's called the Trayvon hoax. You don't have to believe it. Just watch the video and draw your own conclusions. But you should watch it so you understand the other version of that story. But anyway, when Trayvon passed away at the hands of this guy was what, half white, half Latin, George Zimmerman. So what happened is BLM comes out and they just had this whole thing, Black Lives Matter. And it's an emotional ploy. They got a bunch of black people excited and they got a bunch of black people engaged. And BLM was just around for many years. Then the summer of 2020, we know we had the George Floyd situation. This is when BLM blew up. BLM made a lot of money in the summer of 2020. According to documents, it was over $100 million in donations. Or was it $1 billion? It was at least $100 million in donations. Candace Owens did a whole documentary about this. Y'all should go look that up and watch the documentary where she dug into their details. And they took in all this money. And this is when people really started to pay attention to what BLM was about, because BLM had a website the whole time. They started in 2013, but nobody really dug into what they were really about until 2020, when they started taking in a bunch of money and they got a lot more attention. So this is what happens. It's kind of like I do these live streams every day and there are people paying attention. I have an audience, but what if like all of a sudden 100 million people were watching every live that I did? There'd be a lot more scrutiny and a lot more people kind of looking at me and trying to figure out who I was than I am right now. That's what happens when you kind of blow up really fast and now you're getting all this extra scrutiny and attention, because you get criticism and you get fans at the same time. So a bunch of people start paying attention to BLM and they start looking at their website. Now, BLM's website, I believe it still exists. I haven't looked at it in a while, but they had an about page on their website that basically explained what they were about and what they stood for. What it said, past tense, what it said on their website was that we want to censor women and children, and we want to disrupt the concept of the nuclear family. That's what it said on their website. Now, this is a website that is allegedly, or an organization rather, that's allegedly about the mattering of Black life. And they said they want to disrupt the nuclear family, and their about page never even mentioned men. It only mentioned women and children. We come to find out that the women who started BLM are all attracted to women. All right, they're not attracted to men. They're all attracted to women. And what happened in the summer of 2020 is a bunch of people in the mainstream started looking at BLM because they're taking in all this money and they're getting all this attention, and said, yo, do y'all see what it says on their about page? They want to disrupt the nuclear family. Why would any Black, Black supporting, let's call it, organization want to disrupt the nuclear family? One of the biggest challenges in the Black community is that we don't have enough nuclear families. Why would they want to further the concept of disrupting the nuclear family? Why would they want to do that? And this is when BLM, this is what they did. That's why I said past tense on their website. They went and took that language off their about page of their website. So those of y'all who don't know, you can look this up, and there are people who screenshotted it. You can't, the internet has receipts. And they showed like, yo, these people are trying to disrupt the nuclear family. And when that happened, all the support, well, not all of it, but a lot of support that BLM had, people kind of started scaling back. And BLM, they kind of they faded into the bushes. You know that Homer Simpson gif where he's like fading into the bushes? That was BLM. But not before the people who started BLM went and bought like 3 or 4 new houses and made a whole bunch of more money off the backs of people who were pledging money to them. And there was a bunch of people who are not Black that gave them a whole lot of money. A few people whose names I'm not going to say, at least not today. The whole point being subsidizing single motherhood, decentivizing work, as I already explained, with welfare, penalizing marriage with policies that instead encourage marriage. So one of the challenges with marriage in America, you all know that when there's a divorce in a marriage, that the man is usually getting the short end of the stick, if he's getting any of the stick after that happens. And they want to figure out what can they do about this? What can they do about this situation? M3 minors, why do you keep making comments? I'm looking at YouTube. This guy keeps making comments about LeBron James and Michael Jordan in my live stream. What are you doing? All right, so we have to get rid of him. So this encouraging marriage, encouraging work, encouraging motherhood, encouraging fatherhood, and encouraging nuclear families. If you were to ask me, I made a video about this probably about 5 years ago. Not a video, but a podcast episode. My show is called Work on Your Game. Comes out every day on Apple and Spotify, by the way. And I was talking about what are the biggest challenges in the Black community. Number one biggest challenge in the Black community then, as it is now, is that we do not have enough 2-parent households. That's the number one challenge in the Black community. I would have said that 10 years ago. I said it on the record 5 years ago, and I will say it again on the record here today. Biggest challenge in the Black community is a lack of 2-parent households. So anything that incentivizes Black people not having a 2-parent household is a bad idea. And I don't even mean the adults. I'm talking about the kids. If your kid is Black or any part Black, or they're going to go out into the world and be looked at as Black, they need 2 parents at home. Anything that disincentivizes that, I'm not with it. I don't care who it is or who said it. I'm not with BLM. BLM was a scam. I was never a fan of BLM. And I wasn't a fan of it for other reasons that had nothing to do with what they sell on their website. Just the fact that they only popped up when they could blame a white person for something. If you call your organization Black Lives Matter, that means you got to be mad when a black life is lost, regardless of who's responsible. BLM only jumped up for Trayvon Martin because the guy who did it to him was half white. And then they jumped up for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor because the people who did it were white. But when black people kill each other, Black Lives Matter never said anything. They were real quiet, and the mainstream media didn't pick up on those stories. So that's why I was never a fan of Black Lives Matter outside of that. But I could do a whole lot just on that alone. Let's move on. All right, we're back to Project 2025's truth check. They are saying that people said that Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about Black Lives Matter. I keep saying it. They were saying that Project 2025, someone said BLM actually helps neighborhoods and folks who experience police brutality. FOH. No, they don't. What they do is they get you excited anytime they can blame a white person or a cop or the white system for anything that happens to a black person. But when black people do things to each other, they say nothing. That's what Black Lives Matter actually does. We might talk about that when I get to the comments later on. So question is, Brittany says, what about when Planned Parenthood targets black communities and black babies? Do those lives matter? Yes, exactly. So, I mean, again, Black Lives Matter only is a hustle. I understand the business model. The business model in America, if you're running a supporting black people organization, the business model is you have to do things that's going to get the mainstream's attention. The mainstream does not care when black people hurt other black people. It's not newsworthy. It is newsworthy, though, if a cop does it or a white person does it. That's what makes it news, because you can make the racial angle into a story. There's no story when a black person hurts another black person. Right? There's no story. Nobody cares. Nobody outside of the community cares when that happens. That's why Black Lives Matter was a scam from the beginning, because they don't really care about black lives. What they care about is the hustle that allowed them the opportunity to make money. And if you don't believe that, look at their actions. All right. Don't take my word for it. Look at their actions. Judge people by their actions, not by their words. Their actions are they only popped up when there was a white person to blame. They never popped up when black people did things to each other, which happens a lot more than these cop stories that you hear about. The George Floyds, the Breonna Taylors, the Trayvon Martins are once in a blue moon. Black on black is every damn day. But y'all don't hear about that because, again, it's not newsworthy. The mainstream media does not care. And BLM doesn't care because they can't make money off of it. This is a hustle. They're going to understand these people are not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. And they know how to trigger people emotionally so that you don't think logically. So anyway, let me get back to what I was talking about. I could do a whole lot of trash in BLM. Did I do that? If y'all want to hear me do a whole lot of trash in BLM, just put BLM in the chat and I will put it in my notes that I'll do a whole lot of trash in BLM. I already got that. I already got the information. I could just basically go over stuff that I told you all like 4 or 5 years ago. I will trash BLM, but no problem. I got plenty of material on it. So anyway, now going. All right. So I see y'all want me to do that. I'll do that in the future, not today. So now back to what. All right, I'm going to do it. I see it. I see y'all. I'm going to do it. Yeah, she got mentions. Exactly. So Project 2025 says outlawing pornography. They say true. Project 2025 says they want to outlaw pornography. I don't know if I can get away with saying that word on TikTok. I guess so. So they say they want to criminalize the production, distribution, and the consumption of it. That's interesting. This is an interesting one right here. They say porn has no claim to the First Amendment or protection from the First Amendment, and its purveyors are predators of young people and misogynistic exploiters of females. This is interesting wording. Their product is addictive, just as addictive as an illicit drug, and it is as psychologically destructive as any crime. Now, this is probably the strongest statement that I wasn't expecting to see on this truth check page from Project 2025 so far. This is the strongest thing I've heard them say, or that I've read as I've been looking through this page. They want to outlaw. Now, here's the thing with outlawing it is that there's a lot of money made there. Do y'all know? I don't know if y'all noticed, but y'all know that pornography makes the most money on the internet. That if you go look up the top 100 websites on the internet, the porn industry dominates the list. More money is made on the internet through pornography than through any other way. More money is made there than through any other way. So this is a big industry. Now, why does that matter? The reason that matters is that the more money being made in the industry, the harder that industry is going to fight when you try to stop them from doing what they're doing. This is the same reason why when we talk about Make America Healthy Again, that we're going to talk about tomorrow, there's going to be a whole lot of pushback. Anything that RFKJ or Donald Trump tries to do against the food industry, the drug industry, the agriculture industry, they're going to fight very hard because they got a lot of money to fight. They got lawyers, they got money, they lobby, they can pay for ads. They're going to fight really, really hard against this stuff. So the porn industry, they're kind of in the shadows because a lot of people who work in that space, they tend to not like put themselves out like, hey, I run a porn company. Nobody says that. But food companies, they do it. Kelly, I appreciate the rose. So they tend to be more in the shadows, but they got money. They make a lot of money. Again, go Google up a website with the biggest websites. Go look up a list of the biggest websites on the internet, and you're going to see a whole bunch of porn sites on there. You might not even know they're porn sites because the names, if you don't engage, then you might not know who these companies are, but they exist and they make a lot of money. So they're going to fight. Anyway, this is what Project 2025 says they want to do. Now let's move on to healthcare. All right, this is the next category, healthcare. So, actually, another thing I was going to say about that is if you were to knock that down, then listen, I live here in Miami. All right, there's a lot of OnlyFans girls who their whole career is OnlyFans. Right, they fund their lifestyle through OnlyFans. They would be out of a job. Right? OnlyFans will have to shut down a whole bunch of accounts, and probably their top earning people, they would get shut down. A lot of what you see on social media, specifically on Instagram, I don't know if it happens on TikTok. I don't scroll TikTok, but Instagram, there's a whole lot of, basically I heard somebody say this a few years ago. He said, Instagram has become soft porn. And I agree with that. Instagram is soft porn. Not everything on Instagram, depending on what you look at, you can curate your feed, but Instagram has become soft porn. That's what it is. And if they were to actually go through with this and crack down on it, they would probably start cracking down on social media apps like Instagram, like platforms like OnlyFans and all the others that put this stuff out. And it draws a lot of, as they said, back to the language that they use. Their product is addictive like drugs and psychologically destructive like crime. And I believe that. I agree with that. It doesn't feel like it because you may be enjoying yourself while you're consuming it, but it has the same effect, which could be said a lot about. It could be said a lot about Food and Drug Administration as well. But let's move on. So Crespo said, I agree. IG has a lot of soft porn. It's been overrun with soft porn. Absolutely. So now moving on to healthcare. The healthcare. Somebody said you have to say corn. Why? Why have to say corn? What does that mean? So anyway, healthcare says ending the Affordable Care Act. This is what many of you call Obamacare. So it sounds like I'm saying corn when I say porn. All right, can you tell the difference now? Corn, porn, corn, porn, corn, porn. Everybody got it? Now, ending the Affordable Care Act. That is Barack Obama's. I don't get that. Oh, somebody said if you say the. Okay, is that a warning? Yeah, they didn't warn me, so I don't know. Maybe TikTok is okay with it. If I say the wrong word on TikTok, it's like immediate. Like they immediately give me a little. They flash it up on the screen, so I know what it looks like. Trust me, I've been there before. So anyway, let's not even talk about it. So I won't bother their censors. So healthcare, ending Obamacare. They just say they want to curb the abuses of Obamacare, also known as the Affordable Care Act. They don't want to end it. They just want to curb the abuses of it, whatever that means. They didn't go into detail. Moving on. They say raise prescription drug prices. False. They don't want to raise prescription drug prices. They actually want to lower them through competition and innovation. Now, when it comes to the healthcare system, there's a whole lot to be talked about, and we'll address that more deeply tomorrow when we talk about making America healthy again. The pharmaceutical industry is probably, I wouldn't say probably, I would say definitely, that's not directly government, is the biggest scam industry running in America, is the pharmaceutical industry. And again, tomorrow I'm gonna get into that in much more detail. We might need more than one day to talk about that. Let's move on. Education, where again, Truth Checking Project 2025, their website. Ending free and discounted school lunch programs. There's a lot of people talked about this, that, if you vote for Trump, your kids won't get school lunch anymore. They won't get free lunch anymore. They say false. What they are saying that they want to do is they want the Food and Nutrition Service to be moved from the Department of Agriculture, who currently runs it, to the Department of Health and Human Services. So they just want to move who's in charge. They condemn the Biden administration's threat to threaten schools that do not comply with certain policies, T policies, about like what bathrooms people use, that T word that I'm not going to say. And they support prioritizing school meal programs for students who truly need it by reforming and eliminating the often misused community eligibility program, which creates an entitlement for many students regardless of family income levels. In short, let me summarize what they're saying here, is that they want to give lunch and food to kids at school who actually need lunch and food from the school because they can't get it from home. They don't want to just give it to everybody because, well, the government they have budgets. They can't give food to everybody. They're going to run out of money. And this I agree with. I agree with this because when I was in school, I remember this. There were students like elementary school. There were students in my school who they were on the free lunch program. That's what we called it back then. And they needed the free lunch because they came to school with no food. But me and some of my other friends, we brought school to lunch. We brought a brown bag lunch to school. And my parents, I remember my mom talked about this, like, you're not eating the lunch that they give away at school because she knew it was some garbage. It was crap. I'm going to pack your lunch. I'm going to make you something that I want you to eat. I'm not going to send you to school and let them give you what they want you to eat. And this is completely fine. Now, once a week, I would get the school lunch because they had like pizza. And I was like, Mom, I want the pizza. So she let me get the pizza. And then you had to buy it. I had to pay for it. Where other students got it for free. I had to pay like $1 or $2 to get the pizza. But if you're a parent and you can afford to send your kids to school with food, why would you want them eating school lunch? Why would you do that? Do you think the government's food is better than the food you can make at home? If you do, I got a bridge in Idaho to sell you. All right, that's a really bad idea. Moving on. Using public taxpayer money for private religious schools. Fact check or truth check. True. They say they want to do this. They want to use public taxpayer money for private religious schools. Okay, this is a strong statement here. They say Americans are able to use taxpayer money to choose where they shop for groceries, where they live, and where they attain higher education. Religious schools often outperform public schools, and families should have the choice to send their kids to these schools if they want to. Interesting. It's an interesting one. They didn't give any data on this. They're only giving like little paragraphs, but that's an interesting point that they're saying, that they want to use taxpayer money to fund religious schools that are private schools. I do believe, and I don't know about the school being religious, but I do, not only do I believe, I know private schools are better than public school. I'd rather send my kids to a private school than a public school. Now, if it's going to be a religious school, that's a different conversation. But I prefer private over public any day of the week when it comes to, I just mean the quality of the experience my child would have. There's some benefits to going to public school. You get to be around everybody from everywhere. You get to, if you have a young male, he gets to be around other kids who might be a little bit rougher and you kind of get toughened up. But other than that, if I'm talking about the actual education, the quality of the teachers, the quality of the facilities, I'd rather send my kids to a private school. Moving on. Next point. Now, this is a big one. Shut down the Department of Education. They say true. Project 2025 wants to shut down the Department of Education. They want to shut it down. Since the department was created, educational outcomes have not improved. That's true. And the American school system has increasingly fallen behind other countries. Also true. And this is just my commentary when I say true. Giving more control back to state and local governments and expanding school choice would improve education outcomes for all Americans, especially underprivileged communities. Some functions of the DOE will be moved to other departments, including labor, justice, and commerce. So one of the biggest challenges that people have had with this whole concept of Trump saying, because he said this out his mouth, we're going to shut down the Department of Education. So this is one Trump actually said, is that people are like, well, if they shut down the Department of Education and all these kids who may be special needs or they need special attention, they will no longer get funding. They can't get help. And what are they going to do? Well, that's a non sequitur. That's not true. It's a straw man question, because if they shut down the Department of Education, it doesn't mean that all education stops and all money goes away. What they would do, which is what Trump has proven that this is his thing, is he wants to lessen the federal control of things and give control back to the states. One thing that does is it takes more problems off of his hands and lets the states handle it how they see fit, which actually gives us more power on the local level, us being citizens, more power on the local level, because we can vote for our city councilors, mayors, and governors, as opposed to just voting for one president. So I believe that's a good thing. It's good for him, and it's also good for us. And another thing that it does is allow each state to use their money how they see fit. And they also said they want to expand school choice. I'm a big fan of school choice. A parent should be able to send their kids to whatever school they want the kid to go to, not the school that you have to go to because you live in a neighborhood. When I was graduating from elementary school, I went to my local elementary school, and there was a middle school not far from the elementary school. And my mom had gone to that middle school herself when she was a kid. And she said to my sister and I, You two are not going to that school, because it was known as a pretty bad school. These days, that school was shut down. But she said, y'all ain't going to that school. I don't know where you're going to go, but you're not going to that school. And she saw to it that we did not go to that school. We ended up going to like a magnet middle school. And then we went to like magnet high schools. But my mom was adamant, y'all ain't going to that middle school. And there was a high school in the neighborhood that my dad had went to. And it was known as a relatively bad school. It was like a quote unquote bad school, like a neighborhood school. She said, y'all not going to the neighborhood middle school. Y'all not going to the neighborhood high school. And guess what? We didn't. And so she was exercising school choice even before there was a big thing in school choice. But an involved parent can figure this out one way or another. But what the government is saying, not the government, but Project 2025, they're saying that if the government follows their lead, that they would give school choice to more students to do what they wanted to do. Moving on. So now we got economy, immigration, and energy. Then we'll be done and we'll take questions. So let's see. Cut Social Security. So people said Project 2025 is going to end Social Security. Their truth check says false. Their truth check says false. They are not going to end Social Security. And they say, even CNN's fact checkers have confirmed this, stating ambiguously, Kamala Harris falsely claims Project 2025 blueprint calls for cutting Social Security. Again, they said, CNN even said that is not what they're doing. So that's it. Next one, eliminating unions and worker protections. Project 2025 True Check says false. That's not what they want to do. They say they present different ideas about a conservative labor policy that calls for combating the excesses of the deep state's bloated federal employee unions, which have ensured that federal employees keep their jobs, even if they engage in illegal behavior or perform their jobs poorly. Now, that is something that does happen, which is basically when you work in a big bureaucracy like the government, you can do a very bad job, but as long as you don't piss off the wrong person, you can keep your job forever and keep making money. Does that happen in the federal government? Absolutely. Any of you work in the federal government, can you confirm or deny what I just said? That as long as you don't piss off the wrong person, you can suck at your job and keep it and keep making money. That absolutely happens in big bureaucracies, happens in the corporate world too, but the government happens even more because the government is probably the slowest entity in the world when it comes to actually doing things and making change. So there you go. Patriot Business Strategy just told them. No, I did not read 920 pages of it. I told you I didn't read it. I'm reading the Truth Check page on their website. So next, raise the retirement age. Project 2025 True Check says false. We do not want to raise the retirement age. It is not mentioned in our document. Nowhere is it advocated. Next, that Project 2025 wants to end Medicare. This is another thing people keep talking about. That Project 2025 / Donald Trump, if they win, Medicare is going to get ended. They say false. We do not advocate cutting Medicare. So again, this is just a True Check from their site. All right, last section, immigration. So get your comments ready after we go through these. Last section is immigration. This is the Truth Check page from Project 2025's website. This is freely available on the internet. Any of you can read this. All right, next. This is immigration. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Mass deportations of illegal immigrants. Is this true or false? Let me ask you a question. Y'all tell me, true or false? Does Project 2025 want to do this? Do they want to mass deport illegal immigrants? True or false? Please. Please tell me if this is true or false. Does Project 2025 want to mass deport illegal immigrants? True or false? I'm just waiting for y'all to answer. True or false? What do y'all think? And I see a bunch of people saying true. The answer is yes, true. They want to do this. Donald Trump, I think, has said this out his mouth already. And his new guy, Tom Holman, is that the guy's name? The guy who's going to be running this? I forget what thing that Trump has nominated that guy to run, but he's the guy who's going to be in charge of this. They basically verified this. They said they want to do it. They want to get illegal immigrants out of the country. Now, how exactly are they going to do it? I don't know. Are they going to have the resources to do it? I don't know. Is this actually going to happen? I don't know. Are they going to try? Yes. Here's what I think. I think they're going to try. I think they are going to step up their enforcement of the immigration policy and immigration law. I do believe the Trump administration is going to step up their enforcement, meaning if you are in this country right now illegally and you're running around loosely, that you have a better chance of getting caught and deported under the Trump administration than you do right now under the Biden administration. I do believe that that's going to happen. I also believe that crossing the border and coming into this country without proper documentation is going to be a lot harder under Trump than it is right now under Biden. So if you are not in America right now and you want to come here without the proper documentation, I suggest that you got like 2 months. All right, I suggest you do it like ASAP. Like you better start making your plans right now and start start getting your boots and all that so you can walk across that river. I suggest you do it right now, because when Trump comes in, I think this is going to close up like pretty quick. I think he can. Someone said, do they have the manpower? Yeah, I don't know. That's the issue. Like mass deportation, that can mean a lot of things. What exactly does that mean? Now that term is very fluid. A mass deportation can mean 20 people. It could also mean, how many people do you think are here? 200,000? Again, we don't have the resources to do that. And where are you going to find everybody? Like, you're going to go knock on doors? So this is what the Harris campaign and many of Harris's supporters or Trump haters, because usually Harris didn't really have supporters. You had Trump haters. So what Trump haters say about him is that, well, they're going to go send people to knock on your doors, and if you look suspicious, they're going to basically round you up and put you in chains and put you on buses and ship you out of here. That's not going to happen, for the simple fact that the government does not have the resources to do that. We ain't got the people. We don't have the money. We ain't got the buses. We don't have it. And again, where are you going to start? America is a very wide land. Where are you going to start looking for people? So that's not going to happen. This is not going to occur the way that people are in fear envisioning it occurring. So this mass deportation, again, mass can mean 20 people. It can mean 1,000 people. It can mean 1 million people. What exactly do they mean? We don't know. So what they say, they want an orderly and lawful immigration system, which there should be. Actually, we already have that system. It's just not being enforced. The system already exists. It's just not being enforced because Joe Biden, for those of you who don't know, when Joe Biden first stepped into the administration in January of 2021, within 3 weeks, he sent off several executive orders, which basically relaxed all the lawful policies at the border. In other words, he put off all these executive orders that basically said, don't send anybody back if they come to the border. Let them come in. That's basic as a general idea. That's what he did. And Joe Biden did that immediately within the first 3 weeks of his administration. So what Trump's going to do as soon as he gets in is he's going to put all of those orders back in. He's going to do executive orders that knock down Biden executive orders, and he's going to tighten the border up. That's going to tighten it up immediately just by doing that. Now, here's what the Biden-Harris campaign, or administration rather, did in the summer of 2024. They did this already when it was clear that it was going to be Harris against Trump. What they immediately started doing was tightening up the way they enforced the border, because they knew it was getting used against them in the campaign. So Kamala knew this was going to get used against her throughout the campaign, and it did. And it's one of the reasons why she lost. And once they realized that was happening, what they immediately did, Joe Biden did, is tighten up the border again and stop letting so many people in, because they had allowed it to happen basically very recklessly during his campaign. And I think there's a much bigger picture plan that they're doing for this. I think the people that they bring in, because Kamala kept using this phrase, if you listen to her campaign talk, her stump speeches, she was talking about, the phrase she kept using was a pathway to citizenship. You remember her saying this phrase, a pathway to citizenship? You know what she's saying when she says that? What she's saying is, people who are here and you don't have proper documentation, we want to provide you a way to get proper documentation as quickly as possible. And this is what their administration is actually doing right now. They created this pathway. They want to create more of it. They wanted to take it further. If she had won, they would have took this way further, but she's not going to be able to do it now because she didn't win and she has no power. And I don't think Joe Biden even likes Kamala anymore. Just my opinion. And I think he might have voted for Trump. How many of y'all think Joe Biden voted for Trump? But anyway, if you think Joe Biden voted for Trump, put Trump in the comment. And if you think he voted for Kamala, put Kamala in the comment. I think he voted for Trump. But anyway, that's just a joke. But I think he probably did. But anyway, she can't do it now. And then when it comes to, yes, I think a lot of you believe that. Yeah, I think he voted for him. I think he was happy when Trump won, because Trump didn't beat him. He beat Kamala. So anyway, when it comes to this pathway to citizenship that Kamala was proposing, is they would bring these people in the country. Same thing that Lyndon Baines Johnson did with black people in the 60s. They're going to do the same thing with immigrants in the 2020s. We're going to bring you in the country, even though you don't have proper documentation. We're going to get you proper documentation as quickly as possible. And then you, who came into this country under this situation, you're always going to be tethered emotionally to the Democrats, because we're the ones who let you come in the first place. What does this do? This expands the voter base for Democrats. And now they can win more elections and win more states, because they have this influx of people who are now connected to the Democrats, because the Democrats are the ones who did this thing for them. Now, again, this is all a theory of mine. I'm not stating this as fact. This is all a theory of mine, is that what they were trying to do. And had Kamala won, they would have tried to take this further. Now, since she didn't win, they can't do it. But if another Democrat comes in 4 years from now after Trump, then they might do it again. They might try this all over again. So, and they also say Project 2025 say they want to remove anybody who has violated our immigration laws. I don't have a problem with that. All right. Any of you ever traveled to another country and your documentation was off? What happened? What'd they do? If your documentation is off and you're in another country, what do? They kick you out. Now, you can't just walk around another country recklessly. All right, they kick you out. If you're in another country, you ain't supposed to be there. They get rid of you. So I don't understand why people are acting like this is some grave thing that they want to remove anybody who's violated immigration law. You violate law, you get penalized. That happens in every country in the world. How all of a sudden is America this place that we're supposed to just ignore that just because it's America? I don't think so. I don't agree with that. So moving on to last thing they said is they want to put an end to Joe Biden's border crisis and enforce immigration laws. Okay. Last couple of things, deregulate big business and the oil industry. Mostly true. This is the only one where they kind of waffle. Mostly true. They want fewer burdensome regulations for all businesses. So all of the above energy policy that will promote the development of our domestic energy supply. I generally agree with this because, and this is the last point, I generally agree with this because I would rather America be dependent on itself rather than dependent on other countries. So we're dependent on another country to get any level of any type of energy. Well, the problem is, first of all, the other country could raise prices on us. The other country might not have the energy anymore. So now we have none. Or we could get in a conflict with that country or somebody that country likes and, you know, all this political stuff. And now they might raise the prices on us just because they're mad at us. Anything could happen. But if we can get it all internally and we're more self-sufficient, that will make America better. Now, the challenge with this is that often doesn't get said is that the energy here might cost more money than the energy from somewhere else, which is the whole issue of, as we talked about yesterday with the tariffs, that if you manufacture in America, it's going to cost more money to sell the product than if you manufacture outside of America, which is why a lot of companies manufacture outside of America. And at the same time, if you manufacture outside of America, then a bunch of Americans can't get a job working for you because your jobs are over there. But if you manufacture in America, then a bunch of Americans can get jobs because the job is over here. So there's a trade-off to everything. There's no perfect answer here. So whether you're a Trump fan or you're a Harris supporter or you're just anti-Trump, because Harris doesn't really have supporters, just like Joe Biden didn't have supporters. You are either, whether you like Trump or you dislike him, that's pretty much what this comes down to. There's a trade-off to anything that he would do, could do, should do. Everything has a trade-off. There are no perfect scenarios where if he does this and everything's going to be great. It doesn't work that way, especially with a huge conglomerate like the United States government. So with all of that said, let's recap not recap. I don't need to recap because we already did that. Let's go to comments. I'm going to go to YouTube. Then I'm going to go to my screen over here where we tend to have fewer comments. A few on Instagram. Then we'll come to TikTok where we usually got the most. Buddy Boy, good morning over there on YouTube. On Rumble, I didn't see anything. I can't see X and LinkedIn comments. If there are any, I can't see them. So if you have a comment on X or LinkedIn, I'm sorry, I cannot see them. They don't show them to me. I don't see on LinkedIn, and I don't know why the duration says something that it shouldn't say. But anyway, let's go over to Instagram, then we'll get over to TikTok. Let me see what we got. And we were talking about Project 2025. This is part 2, by the way. I did part 1 yesterday. So if you missed part 1, make sure you catch it. And Enigmatic Zach says they thought they both had their own plans for 2025. Well, this was a particular document called Project 2025 that a think tank put out. Think tank is just a group of people to get together, come up with policy suggestions for politics. There's a lot of money to be made in politics. So these people come up with these big documents and all these suggestions, and hopefully their suggestions get implemented. Politics has a lot of moving parts. Good morning. Okay. Wire Concepts. Appreciate you. Enigmatic says, yeah, like she was in the WWE. Right. So no, she wasn't in it. She was a CEO. She was an executive of the WWE. So again, people are bringing that up like it makes her like not serious. She was an executive. She just happened to be the company. But people just put it out. Oh, they're bringing in this WWE person to work in Trump's administration. People are like, LOL, Trump's an idiot. Look at this WWE person without understanding the context. But I think a lot of people don't want to understand the context because they just don't like Trump. So they'll take anything that makes them feel good. Crespo said, I was raised on welfare and food stamps. Yeah, a lot of people were. Welfare affected Latinos too. I'm sure it did. I'm just not Latin, so I couldn't speak to that experience. It's given as a temporary assistance, but it crippled a lot of people and created worse. Exactly. I mean, again, it was created as something to help people, but it made things worse. So I see you all wanted the BLM. So I am going to do that BLM one. Crespo said, I agree. IG has a lot of soft porn. Yes, it does. Private religious schools, yeah, there are plenty of them. Enigmatic says, does cut taxes the same as not rising them? No, cut means it's going to be lower. So not rising them means they can stay the same. Let's see. I don't think they got the manpower. No, the government does not have the manpower. It's not they, it's the government, which is they work for us. There is no manpower to do that. It depends on what we mean when we say mass deportation. Again, that phrase is very fluid. So Art thinks that I think they'll just try to deport the criminals. That's where they're going to start. Yes, they're going to start with the criminals. Official Gabriel. So I think they're going to report the ones who are committing crimes. Yes, that is what's going to happen. They're going to open up a report line to tell on people. Those who crossed illegally, but I hope the hardworking ones at least have a chance. Maybe. We'll see what they do. We'll see what actually happens. Y'all got to understand Trump talks in these metaphorical terms, and people think that everything he says he's going to actually do. He's selling people. His salesmanship is what he does. Gabriel says, I'm a Puerto Rican Venezuelan with family from Venezuela. A lot of people crossing and getting asylum seeking status without getting proper background check. Yes, that's what the current administration is doing. That's correct. That's exactly what they're doing. And Trump wasn't lying. Other countries were emptying out their. Yeah, we know. That's exactly what they're doing. So what Gabriel said over here on Instagram is that other countries, when they realized how soft America was on immigration, is that other countries will basically take their incarcerated people and send them over to America. So they don't have them as problems anymore, because even though they're incarcerated, eventually they get out of jail. Right. So they were emptying their prisons and sending the people to America. And those are, I'm not saying everybody coming over here is from prison, but that's what a lot of countries are doing. If y'all saw the movie Scarface, isn't that what happened? Isn't that what, I'm afraid to say the name of that country, but that country with the letter C, they emptied, and the guy who ran it, his name was FC, that guy, they emptied their incarcerated locations, and they sent all of those people over to America, and America let them stay. And that's allegedly where Tony Montana came from, was from that. Now, we know it's a movie, but that was the idea, and that is what they did. And Gabriel says there's a gang that's crossing the border with the migrants getting entry into the country to live off the government. Yeah, I know, you're right. Official Gabriel said, I feel like Project 2025 is capped. It came out of nowhere. Well, I went over that yesterday, Gabriel, that Project 2025 is run by a think tank, and these organizations exist everywhere. They exist on the left as well as the right. What they do is they come together and they come up with a bunch of policy ideas and suggestions that they present to whoever is currently running the government. So if it's a Democratic president, they get plans like Project 2025, like Obama did. And if there's a Republican president, they get plans from a group that they all are doing the same thing. They're basically trying to persuade the current administration to take on their ideas. That's what they're doing. Because president is a big job. There's so many different things that you could deal with that you need some help kind of figuring out what to do. So that's what they do. So no, it's not cap. It's a suggestion. It's a plan of suggestions, not Donald Trump's actual plan. Oh, Crespo said that's what he did. Yes, I know that's what he actually did. Now they use it in the movie. The movie is fictional, but he did actually do that. I know that he actually did that. Yes, exactly. You got it right, Gabriel. What you said there, Marielle Boatlift. Yes, that's exactly what he did. Think tank. That's what they call themselves, a think tank. That's the actual term. Think tank is a group of people that come together, think about ideas and policies, and then they present it to the person in charge and say, hey, you might want to try some of these. That's literally that's the official name of the group. Landy said they were vetted, though. Who are you referring to? Landy said, I'm exhausted hearing about tariffs. Please explain for these people why tariffs are good. Well, tariffs are a thing. It's not even that they're bad or good. They have a trade-off. The tariff simply means I talked about this yesterday. If I'm manufacturing toothpaste in here in Miami, and I decide I'm going to instead manufacture my toothpaste in Brazil, what Donald Trump is proposing is that he's going to start making me pay extra money. The tariff is just a tax. I got to pay extra money for every tube of toothpaste that I import from Brazil because I'm not making it here in America. So the concept is Donald Trump, this whole thing is America first. He's always been about America first. He wants to bring all manufacturing back to America, or as much as he can. And one of the ways that he proposes he'll do that is by penalizing companies for doing your manufacturing outside of America and not putting a tax on you if you manufacture in America. So it can be good in that way that, first of all, it makes the government money because that tax dollars they get to keep. Secondly, it may incentivize more companies to bring manufacturing back to the USA, which it did for several companies. And the trade-off is that if there are tariffs and or a company moves its manufacturing back here to the USA, that it costs more money to manufacture here because you have to pay people more. And that if you're paying the tariff, then you're not keeping as much money on your product. So you may raise the prices of your products. So the trade-off is the prices of products may go up because of the tariffs. This is what Mark Cuban was trying very hard to emphasize for months when he was campaigning for the Kamala campaign. He was talking too much and made himself look dumb, but general idea is that there's a trade-off. And Mark Cuban was unwilling to acknowledge the trade-off. Janet says, Republicans and Democrats are wings of the same bird. This isn't about party is good versus evil. Right. Well, who's the good? Who's the evil? That's the question, Janet. That's the real question. Who's the good versus evil? I do believe that the overall government is still the government, whether it's Republican or Democrat. But we got to figure out who the good and who the evil is. And what Mark Cuban failed to do, because he was working for Kamala, so I guess he couldn't do it, is just admit that there's a trade-off. But a lot of people don't want to look at things objectively and critically, because when you look at things critically, you realize that there's no one perfect right answer and there's no terrible wrong answer. There are positives and negatives on both sides. So some of the things that Trump wants to do, there are pros and cons. Some of the things Kamala wanted to do, there are pros and cons. If she actually did them. Now, see, with Trump, at least we know what he would do because he was already president. With Kamala, we don't really know if she was just talking or she could actually do these things because she's never been president. With Trump, we got a track record. So with Trump, we can look at the things that he did and see. And Russ over there, Rusa, on Instagram says, tariff is the fight of certain country. Well, I can't say the name of that country that you mentioned there, Rusa. Mind you, I'm on TikTok. And yes, you're right. I know it's for certain countries. So those tariffs don't mean it's just any country in the world. It's for certain countries. And y'all are pretty familiar with what country Trump has gone after hard for a long time. Katie says, is Obama or Biden escalating the war before Trump back? I can't say the name of that country. Are they? Maybe. I think Trump can put an end to that. I think he can put an end to these things. Trump is a negotiator. He's a deal maker. That's what Trump likes to do. He likes to make deals. He wrote about that in one of his books. That's his thing, making deals. Some people like to play sports. Some people like to take pictures. Some people like to drive cars. He likes to make deals. Trump's whole thing is he's a deal maker. So this is why he's able to negotiate peace between these countries and things like that, because he's a deal maker. That's his thing. Magical said, do you think Trump's first 4 years helped America? That's a loaded question. It's hard to say helped America. What do you mean by helped America? Because America itself as an entity, it depends on what part of it you're looking at. There's a lot of different angles you can look at that from and say, here are some good things, here are some bad things, but we can't blame it on one person. That's what we do in politics, but it's not really about any one person. Totally Garrett said, would tax cut offset the price increase of tariffs? Well, it depends on how much on both ends. How much is the tax cut? Who's the tax cut for? And what's the increase on the tariffs? We don't know. We don't have that information yet. So I can't answer that question. So there are some variables in there that would be required to know if it makes sense. Then it'll just be a math problem. But good question, but I can't answer that. Someone said, user 384 says, anybody with the name user, I don't know about them. They said, shut and read those books behind you. I guess shut up, read those books behind you. Trump was a felon. Let's see you try that. Well, I wrote these books. I don't think I need to read them again. But I get your angle, I suppose. Sweet Ice Lady said, do you have an example of something Trump negotiated well that was for the benefit of the United States? Again, it depends on what you consider a benefit for the United States. Do you consider it a benefit if a company stops manufacturing overseas and starts manufacturing again here, which creates more jobs in America? Is that a benefit or is it not? It depends on your perspective. So benefit is a subjective term. I could say it's a benefit that it's hot right now in Miami. It's a beautiful day. I could also say it's bad because that sun is hitting me right now and it's hot sitting here. So is it a benefit or is it a bad thing? Depends on how you choose to look at it. Dirtbike says, you have way too much faith in companies. There's no way companies put their profits before people. Yes, they do. Have you heard of capitalism? That's exactly what they do. Companies always put their profits before people. I'm not saying every company. I'm not saying all the time. But in a capitalistic society, people emphasize the dollar. That's what happens when you have capitalism. And there's an example right there for everybody asking, is something good or bad? Capitalism, I generally agree with. That doesn't mean it's all perfect. One of the trade-offs of capitalism is that people emphasize money. And sometimes in emphasizing money, you de-emphasize other things. So the trade-off of it is I might fire a bunch of my staff because I want to make sure we maintain our profits to appease my shareholders. But the trade-off of that, even though I maintain my profits and my shareholders are happy, the trade-off is now I just fired a bunch of people who now don't have a job. So is it good or bad? It depends. Again, it depends on your perspective. So everything in life has a trade-off. If people would just accept that, then we would stop trying to make everything so black and white. It's not black and white. It just depends on your perspective and what you want versus what you don't want. What are you willing to give up to get what you have? That's really what it comes down to. Russ says, I suspect there will still be cheaper goods from other areas. Yes, of course there will. The goods will be cheaper in those places because it doesn't cost as much to hire an employee and the cost of living is lower in those places. So, of course, it will always be cheaper to manufacture outside the United States. Not always, but let's just say for the time being, it will always be cheaper to manufacture outside the United States. That's the reason why Trump said America first, because he's selling himself to Americans. That's his whole thing. He hasn't changed. He's the same thing for the last 10 years. All right. So anyway, let's see. Janet says, we've been told to prepare for hard times coming. Take heed, America. Yes. Well, people always say that. I mean, honestly, people always say harder times are coming. Well, again, harder, it depends on what hard means for you. Again, these terms are all very subjective, but yes, it can happen. Yes, it can. Dirtbike says, giving up a job so a shareholder can get richer isn't something people should have to deal with. Well, should? What are we talking about? The Sesame Street is not your call. If you have a job and your boss fires you because they want to maintain profits, you don't have a say in the situation. You can't say, well, I'm not giving up my job. I'm going to keep working here. No, you're fired. So what you're saying there, I get the direction of what you mean. I get the spirit of your point, but by the letter that you don't actually have that choice. You don't give up a job if you get fired. You get laid off, you're laid off, you're fired. You're not giving it up. Janet says, Kamala had every chance to do something all this time. Why hasn't she? Well, depends on who you ask. If you ask a supporter of Kamala, they'll say, well, she's only the vice president. She doesn't have the power. And if you ask someone who doesn't like Kamala, they'll say what you said. She's not doing anything and she's just talking. I believe a lot of what she was saying were things that sounded good on the campaign trail, but I don't think she would have actually been able to do. That's my opinion. I don't think she would have been able to do a lot of those things. It sounded good, but was it actually going to happen? I would say no. Dirtbike says, how does that help Americans, bro? Well, again, which Americans are we talking about? All right. Something that helps me might hurt you. So I'm an American. You're an American. So it helps Americans because I got helped. It hurts Americans because you got hurt. So you see how that works? So helps Americans doesn't mean it's going to be good for everybody, but there's an American who can be helped. Meg says, God thinks less of you for being MAGA. Are you talking about me? I'm not MAGA. I'm just an objective observer who tries to look at things with a critical eye and explain them and make them simple enough for everybody else to understand. And that's also a fallacious point anyway. Even if I was MAGA, your point is fallacious. All right. I don't think God cares if you're a MAGA or not. I think God cares about more important things. Little Ryo said, Mike Pence, what did he do? That's a very good point. That's a good point if you're defending Kamala. What did Mike Pence do? Exactly. What did Biden do when he was VP to Obama? What did Dick Cheney do when he was VP to Bush? None of them did anything. So how are we going to hold Kamala to that same standard? That's a very good point to defend her. At the same time, people who don't like her don't care about that. They just want to use anything to trash her. The same way people who don't like Trump will use anything to trash him. This is how it works. Drug Money TY says, exactly, finally a logical thinker on this platform. Thank you. I'm glad you found me. Loves World says, nothing she said sounds good. I think it all sounded good. I just don't think it was going to happen. Earl Lewis. Well, first of all, Brittany, when you put in these comments, if someone mentions these two countries that are currently in conflict, the R country and the U country, I cannot say those words on TikTok. So I can't answer that question, Earl, because I can't say those words on TikTok. They've already warned me. TikTok has directly warned me, do not say that word. They didn't say it in so many words, but I said that word, the R word, that country over there, the big one that has a guy in charge with the name P. And when I said that word, they immediately flashed up on the screen. Be careful. So I can't say that word. Leo Rayro said it helps a few Americans, harms a lot more. Well, it depends. That depends. You have to get actual data on that, and then you had to define what help and hurt mean for us to be able to actually believe what you said. Blue Sky said God loves us all the same. Come on, yeah, I would agree with that one. Blue Skies, you're much more accurate in saying I don't think God gives a damn about Trump or Kamala, at least who we vote for. He cares about them as people, but who you vote for, no. you all are getting way too in on this political thing if you're making that kind of comment. I don't know if she was trolling or not, but Jordan Money said, did I major in philosophy? Technically, I did not. I majored in business, but I did kind of major in philosophy in a tongue-in-cheek type of way because I read a lot of books on human psychology, philosophy, mindset, how the mind works and why. So I should have majored in philosophy. I probably would have got more out of it than a business degree. Zach says, do I still hoop? No, I stopped playing basketball in 2015, Zach. But all my hooping videos are still on YouTube if you want to watch them. Duncan Bracey said, I assume you never sin. You're assuming wrong. There's no human who's never sinned. Sweet Ice Lady said, thank you for being objective. Thank you. Let's see. Kamala was making promises that she cannot keep. Well, every candidate does that in defense of Kamala. Every candidate says a bunch of stuff that sounds good so they can get voted in. That's the whole point. They want to get elected, so they say whatever they got to say to try to win. The challenge for Kamala was that she was saying too many things that sounded too perfect. So it started to get to the point where it didn't sound believable, because what would happen is she would make these promises and then she would get interviewed and then she would get asked questions about these things that she said, and she would kind of like word salad around answering the question. So it started to seem like she started to seem less believable, because the more she talked, the more it seemed like she was just saying stuff just to say it. And I think that hurt her credibility with voters and is one of the reasons why she lost. She was just saying stuff. And I'm like, all right, can you actually give us some substance in one of these answers? She wasn't doing that. I don't feel like she was doing that. Mimi said, definitely got to watch our words on here. Yeah. And it's not about being respectful, Mimi. It's about, it is about being respectful, but not of other people. It's not about me being respectful of y'all people in the comments. It's about me being respectful of the fact that TikTok has in the past already kicked me off for saying the wrong thing. So I got to be careful reading you all's comments saying the wrong word, because I can say the wrong word and mention the wrong person. I've even mentioned a person on here before, that kickboxer guy with the bald head who got kicked off all social media. Is that guy? I mentioned his name in a video before, then TikTok took it down. I mentioned the name of that country over there with the guy, the leader, whose name is VP, and they kicked me off. Or they warned me. They said, say that name again, we're going to do something. So you got to be careful on TikTok. Our flag says, the new Trump cabinet, how can people with no experience run this country? Well, Donald Trump did. There's your answer right there. Donald Trump had no experience and he ran the country. I mean, you're still alive, ain't you? So there's your answer right there. And the people in the cabinet, they aren't running the country. The purpose of the cabinet is to advise the guy who's in charge. So Trump's in charge. Zachary says she gave a detailed plan to handle the housing crisis. Okay, if you believe that, that's fine. The question is, could the plan actually happen? We all know that plans usually don't happen the way that they're planned out. Now, how many of you ever made a plan in life and it went exactly as you thought it was going to go? So just because she laid out a plan doesn't mean it was going to happen. And that's the issue. That's the issue with Kamala, is that she was saying things that sounded too perfect, and then she couldn't explain how they were actually going to happen when she got questioned on them. And with Trump, on the other hand, and to juxtapose it with Trump, Trump would say, these are the things we're going to do. And he knew when he said it that certain people would get mad about it and not like that he said it. But that actually added credibility to his point, because everyone understands subconsciously, even if you couldn't logically explain it, that everything in life has a trade-off. One of the trade-offs of everything Trump said was that half the people didn't like the idea. That actually gave credibility to it, which shows that it's actually a real idea, because most decisions that a leader makes, half the people are mad and half the people are happy. Any of you ever been in a leadership position? Please co-sign that. Any of you ever been in leadership? I don't care if you're leading 5 people or 500. Every decision you make, half the people are mad and half the people are happy. You cannot please everybody when you're a leader. That's not the way it works. Kamala's plans sounded like she was going to please everybody. That's why it wasn't believable. Does everybody understand that? That's why it didn't work, because people were like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. You can't do all these things. Zachary said, tax credit and grants to build. Yeah, well, she claimed she was going to do that. She would need Congress to do that. And now with 2 Republican sides of Congress, I'm not sure they were going to cooperate with her. Do I think Musk and Vivek's plan to lay off millions of employees? What's your question? What do I think about it? I'll just answer a different question besides what you typed there. What I think about Elon and Vivek's plan to lay off millions of federal employees, it depends on why they're doing it. And they would need, when they explain why they're doing it, I heard Vivek say something like that. that he would want to, basically he wants to cut down all the bloated federal spending. And there's a bunch of people with federal jobs that aren't really doing anything that matters, and it's costing taxpayers money. And that's why he wants to get rid of them. So on that premise, I say that's a good idea. After they got laid off, well, they can get another job. I mean, people get laid off every day. I mean, it's a thing. People get laid off every day. And if a bunch of people are doing a job that is not producing a return on investment that is commensurate with how much they're being paid, would you keep paying them? Little Rye Rio. If you ran a business and you had 5 people working for you who are getting paid, but they're not producing anything, would you keep paying them? Or would you fire them? Or what would you do? Would you keep paying them out of benevolence and the kindness of your heart while it's hurting your checkbook? Or would you fire them because they're not producing anything that's worth the money that you're giving them? See, if you put yourself in that different frame, then it sounds different. See, it sounds like somebody is like savage and terrible. Oh, they're going to fire millions of people. Well, what are the people doing as a job right now before they get fired? What if somebody's just getting paid and they're not doing any work? Would you fire them? So see, when you frame it differently, things change. Lisa says risk and reward and everything. Chances for reward look higher with Trump. Fair enough. That's the way you see things. Okay, so Tuesday's Gone says, where's she at? Who are you talking about? You talking about Kamala? I think she should be in the White House working. I mean, she technically is the vice president. Rachel said, I learned this as a parent. Yes. So many of you who've never been in leadership positions, y'all think that there's a perfect answer. There are no perfect answers when you're a leader. And the more people you're in charge of, the less chance you're ever going to find a perfect answer. There are none. You could be leading 2 people and there's no perfect answer. Michael said Trump claims a lot also. Yes, he does. I just told you, Trump is a salesperson. He speaks in metaphors to sell you on ideas, and he's very good at it. That's the reason why he's won 2 elections. And depending on who you ask, maybe more than that. Flaggy. Oh, it's pronounced Flage. Frage, I think I got it right now. Said no experience, fail us as people from the P word that I can't say, the virus, because he didn't follow the book was left him. Well, there's a lot of things that can be said about that virus, but I got to be careful talking about that on this platform, this one that I'm looking at the screen right now. I got to be careful talking about that. I probably can't talk about it in enough detail on this platform. Flage, I suggest you go watch my videos on YouTube where I have discussed it. I can get away with talking about it more over there than I can over here. So I get what you're saying. I do have a response, but I can't give you that response on this platform at the risk of getting kicked off the platform. And I'm not joking. So lady said they're draining the swamp. Well, they're trying to. Trump isn't in office yet. So we'll see if he does. Trump is all about perceptions, just like the Wizard of Oz. Well, everybody's all about perception, Freedom. You can't say that just about Trump. Kamala Harris is not about perception. She better be about perception. You're trying to win a federal election. You better be about perception. The whole game is perception. It's a sales job. Running for president is a sales gig. In case any of you didn't know, it is sales. That's what it is. Perception matters a ton in sales. If you're not about perception, you ain't even going to make it, which might explain why Kamala, when she tried to run in 2020, didn't make it. Her perception was terrible. She got in here because she was already the VP. But if she had to go through a whole what's they call primary process against a bunch of other people, do you think, how many of you think if they would have had an open primary this year, Kamala would have won the ticket? Let me ask that question. Put yes or no in the comments. If they had an open primary after Biden dropped out and they just said, we're going to open it up, whoever wants to run can run, and then we're going to figure out the winner over the next month, because they only had about a month before the DNC. How many of you think Kamala would have won? Just having to run against everybody else in just a fair and square primary. Now, it wouldn't have been a long primary because they only had about a month. As usually a primary is like several months, like 6 months, a year. But how many of you think Kamala would have won? I personally don't think she would have won. I think she would have came in last place, personally. So I see a whole lot of no's. I don't think she would have won. I think she would have lost very handily to people like Michelle Obama. If Michelle had gotten in, she would have destroyed Kamala. It wouldn't have been a competition. I think Shapiro from Pennsylvania would have beat her. I think Whitmer from Michigan would have beat her. I think even Newsom from California would have beat her. I think all of them would have beat her. So I don't think she would have won if she had to actually compete against those other people. She didn't have to compete because she was already the VP. I gotta be careful. I'll talk about that too, because I said that one time on here and TikTok kicked me off. I don't know what exactly I said, but anyway. And Dumpster said Congress holds the power of the person. There's no way they cut $2 trillion out. Well, that's a good argument. So we'll see. Again, it's going to be a fight. So any of you you hate Trump and you think he's just going to run rutshot over the government because he won? No, he's not, because he's got a lot of enemies. All the Democrats don't like him, and half the Republicans don't like him. So it ain't like Trump can just get in there and do what he wants. He got too many people trying to fight against him. So it's going to be a fight internally. Melanie said, we are leaders of ourselves. So lead as you want to be led. That's correct. An I debunker says, I'd like to see black men around books. Me too. Dr. Drea says, am I personally okay with Project 2025? Dr. Drea, you must have came in here late. I talked about Project 25 for literally 4 hours between yesterday and today. So I suggest you go to YouTube when this is over, Dr. Drea, and please watch the replay from today and yesterday, where I have talked about this. Literally, I've given you all 4 hours of talking about this. Yes, for Jay, I get your point. I don't agree with your point, but I get your point. Yes. And again, go on YouTube and watch my videos where I talk about. Type in my name, Dre Baldwin, and type in the name of that virus that I'm not going to say that starts with the letter C. And I got a bunch of videos where I'll talk about it. So if you disagree with something that I said in those videos, just leave it in the comments on YouTube. I'll see it. I'll get to it. But I can't talk about it on here, especially the way that Trump framed that whole thing. I think TikTok is very sensitive to any conversation about that virus. So let me stop even saying that word. Lisa said, I think people are generally inclined to assume the worst when policies are vague. I don't think most people read policies, Lisa. I don't think most people care. Janet says, are we now in WW3? Not yet. I don't think anyone in America well, some people in America are saying it. I don't think America is really going to feel it until we really get involved. Like we start sending soldiers. Right now, we're sending money. But if we start sending soldiers, I think then we would feel like it. Because, again, we didn't call WW1 or WW2 what we called them until we got involved. Right now, we're financially involved, but we don't really feel that because, again, government just prints money. Now, if we actually start sending people over there, then I would say yes. Right now, we're not sending people. We start sending people, and there's a whole different thing. But that's a good reason. Good thing that Trump won, because I think Trump's going to settle that. That's what I think is going to happen. My bet, how many of y'all think that? Yes. Put yes or no. Do you think Trump will settle the conflict happening over there? Actually, it's two conflicts. Let's start with the first one, with the country with the letter C, not C, excuse me. What letter is that? R. The country with the letter R, with the leader named VP, and the country with the letter U. Do y'all think Trump will settle that to where he basically puts an end to it? Put the word yes or no if you think Trump will settle that conflict. How many of you think Trump will settle the conflict between the R country and the U country? Someone said only if his daddy VP tells us it. Well, his daddy VP is actually trying to do more. So your answer is kind of doesn't follow. It's a non sequitur. I think he's going to settle it. Because again, Trump's a deal maker. That's his thing. He likes to make deals. That's what his thing says. Janet says we have soldiers there. Yes, I know technically we have soldiers there. I mean, like in mass, we start sending people like we're really, really in it. Right now, we're not really in it. Right now, we are, again, mostly we're sending money, not people. When we start sending people for real, and the people in the reserve start getting called to duty, that's what I mean, Janet, to respond to what you said there. Technically, yes, we have soldiers, but I'm talking about like a serious number. Yeah, I think he's going to settle it. Now, and I got some people who said no. Some of you said no, but most of you said yes, but some people said no. So, yeah, those leaders know he's a good negotiator. Yes, they do. And they also know that if he tells them he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And the reason why he has leverage is because if either one of those countries violate anything that he proposes to them, the United States can beat either one of those countries. I think it would be tough, but the United States can beat either one of those countries. That's any of the countries that's in conflict right now is four of them. I'm going to mention the other two in a second. We can beat any of them as of today. So that's why Trump has a ton of leverage on top of the fact that he's who he is. Now, here's the other conflict. Do you think Trump can settle the conflict in the country that starts with the letter I between the I people and the P people? Answer yes or no. Can he settle that conflict between that country with the letter I, between the I people and the P people? Can he settle that conflict? Yes or no? What do y'all think? Is he going to be able to settle that one? I think he'll settle that one even more easily than he settles the one with the U country and R country. Personally, I think he will. But some people say, someone say he already started. Yeah, I think he's going to settle all of it. I think he's going to settle all of the conflicts in between those countries. How? Well, that's up to him. How exactly is he going to do it? He's a negotiator. That's his whole thing. Someone said definitely no interest in the U.S. Yes, if you're a career politician, he's not a career politician. So someone said not sure it's been 10,000 years. Fair enough. What I'm saying is he's going to settle it to where they chill out for now. I'm not saying that they're going to be friends. So what I mean when I say settle, and is it good that y'all made these comments? What I mean is he's going to get them to chill out. I don't mean he's going to make it like they like each other. They're not going to like each other. But I think he can get them to chill out on the stuff that they're doing right now. That's what I mean. He can end the dead bodies. That's what I mean. So someone says not good that Biden is slipping. He has access. Biden ain't doing nothing. Biden's just cruising along. So how will he, AJ? That's my answer. I don't know, but that's the reason why he's the deal maker. That's the reason why he got elected. G, I can't say the name of that country you put there. And I can't mention that other country. You mentioned 2 countries. I cannot say those. So I can't really respond to your comment without saying it because you said too many things that I can't say. All right. So other countries need U.S. support and Trump will not pay. Exactly. That's it. What Melanie just said right there. Brittany, can you pin that? That's the point right there. These other countries need our help. And if the United States says we're not helping anybody, then they either got to fight their own battles, which they won't do, or they'll just chill out behind whatever Trump says. If you want to keep this money flowing in, y'all got to chill out. And I don't think that's how he would say it, but y'all get what I'm saying. So someone said, how? Collusion. Maybe. I mean, everything is collusion. If you think about it, Dr. Dre, everything is collusion. Hate us, but need us. Yeah, that's pretty much that's correct. That's what it is. Hate us, but need us. Okay, so in the future, here's what we're looking at. I'll take a couple more comments while I'm listening to you all while I'm reading this. But in the future, tomorrow is Friday, right? Yes, tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow we're going to do Make America Healthy again. I got a lot of things to say about the health, not even the health industry, but the state of health in America. Let's just call it that. That we're going to do tomorrow. And BLM, I got to make sure I put a note that I trash BLM. I'll be happy to do that. That'll be fun, trashing BLM. So I'm writing it down right now in my notes, trashing BLM. All right, so I'm going to trash BLM probably next week. And barring any other current events, we'll see what happens after that. Someone said we can't stay in, I don't know if I can say that, NATO and take that stance. Well, then we might leave. Trump will do things that most politicians wouldn't do because he ain't a politician. So maybe you're right, G. And maybe the answer that Trump has to that is shrug of her shoulders. Okay. Rose said, you make excellent points. Thank you. Thank you for that, Rose, who just sent me that. Mimi, I appreciate it. It's me, Amber. Appreciate that. What is that? Festburst. Lisa Green, appreciate that. Someone said, you're still yapping. Yes, I'm still yapping. Monica said, glad I found you. Me too. Lisa said, thank you for being so objective. You're welcome. Domino Entertainment, thank you for the hearts. Thoughts on the housing market? What about it? It's a very broad question. Pop said, how about you run for president next? No, hell no. I don't want to be involved in the government. And I would never win an election. Y'all hear me talking here, right? How I'm telling you both sides of everything. I would never win. You can't win an election talking like that. If you tell people both sides of everything you're going to do, then you're not going to get enough support to get people to vote for you. You can only tell them to win an election. You can only tell people one side. You can't tell them the trade off of everything you're going to do. So I can tell you I'm going to cut your taxes. You get all excited, but I'm not going to tell you that that means that your prices are going to go up and that we're going to print more money and that all these other bad things are going to happen as a result of cutting your taxes. If I tell you that, you're not going to vote for me. So I can never win just because of my normal nature of speaking. I would have to suspend my normal way of communicating to win an election. So I would never win. I wouldn't even come close. Resilience is Beauty said, I'm glad I found your channel. I am as well. Glad you came here. What I'll do when it comes to politics, I'll talk about what they're doing, but I'm not trying to compete against them. No way. No way. And I don't want to work for the government anyway. Did you see Obama when he first got elected versus when he left? Oh, you saw that gray? All right. See, I ain't got gray. I don't color my hair. I'm 42 years of age. You see, Obama was like, how old was he when he got out? He's older. Obama's older than me, but I don't want to get gray prematurely. Hopefully I never turn gray. My dad doesn't even have gray. So maybe I won't turn gray. But if I go become president, I might turn gray like Obama. I don't want that. Hannah says, have I talked about Tulsi? No, I have not talked about Tulsi. What about her? What's your question? Someone said, I hope as a private insurance payer, Maha will see it's super ill balanced. Well, we'll see. We'll see. That's a detailed point that you're making there, but we'll see. I mean, they can't please everybody. That we know. They can't please everybody. Max says whatever Trump says. I don't know what you're referring to. Maxie said he asked your thoughts. Thoughts on what? What topic are you talking about? Thank you. It's me, Amber B. Appreciate it. Piano says, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I like hearing both sides of everything. Me too. G said, you might be surprised. I might be. You're right. You could be surprised by things that Trump does. He doesn't do things like a normal politician. So you're 100% right. He might do something we don't expect. Lisa said, can't win an election right in the middle in a binary party system. Exactly. That's why I could never get into politics. Not talking like this. The way y'all hear me talking, I could never win an election talking like this. I would have to change up my whole style and only talk about one side of things and act like the other side is terrible. That's the only way you can win. You can't win an election being objective. Maybe I can win like something local. Like I can go be like a city council in Miami Beach or something like that. But like mayor, governor, Congress, Senate, president, no chance. I wouldn't even get anybody to donate money. I wouldn't even have any donors because as soon as they hear me talk, they're like, nah, Joe, you can't say that. We can't give you money for saying that. I wouldn't raise any money. So I wouldn't even have enough money to run a Facebook ad, let alone win the election. Someone said make a separate video for Tulsi. I'm not sure who that is. Well, Mimi, why would you want to make the video? You don't even know who it is. I ain't making a video. I doubt I'm gonna make a video about Tulsi. What about her? I mean, what do y'all want to know about her? I don't think she's enough of a news for me to do a whole album on Tulsi alone. That's my response when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard is her name. She was in the military. She has some people who don't like her because she technically was a Democrat. And then she switched over. She didn't actually become a Republican, but she's going to be part of Trump's cabinet. Allegedly, he nominated her. So some people don't like her, claim that she works for that our country. And that's the smear that they put on her. Everybody that Trump appointed, they put a smear on them. Notice every single person that Trump appointed, they got some negative thing they keep repeating about them. Y'all notice that? Interesting, because most people feel the way you speak. Yes, that's an interesting point, Pokey Dots. That's an interesting point that you say there. And most people feel the way that you speak. I think most people who are listening to me feel the way that I speak. I don't think everybody feels this way because it ain't. How many people we got in America? 330 million. Right now, it says 140 people watching this live. So that's a very small percentage. I think a lot of people do feel this way. The challenge is multiple challenges. Number one is that people have to give enough time to a subject in order to understand it in depth. And most people will not sit and listen to somebody talk for an hour or 30 minutes or even 15 minutes in order to get the point of what's being said. That most people like the quick thing, something that they can absorb very quickly, such as social media. And the other thing is, if talking logically and objectively and critically actually could move masses of people, then there'd be more people going to the library than go to the movies. That's the metaphor that I use to help people understand. So I think there are a lot of people who do want to hear the kind of things that I talk about in the way that I explain them, but not the masses of people. You got to remember, we're talking 300 million people. And let's say about half of them vote, right? So about half of people vote. So it's about 150 million vote. Most people do not want to hear things logically and objectively explained to them because they just want to hear what appeases their emotions. So Nut Squawk said you wouldn't win because you don't have any actual points. Well, see, you wouldn't vote for me, so I wouldn't win your vote. So you got that part right. Lisa said they age so much faster under all that stress. Yeah, exactly. See, Trump's already old, so you couldn't tell him aging. But Obama, he was young when he got in. And when he got out, he was old. It was only 8 years. It's not an easy job. Exactly. That's right. Do not mix feelings with business. Yeah, that's right. But if you're going to win an election, you have to mix feelings. You have no choice. All right. Appreciate it, Brittany. All right. So innocent until proven guilty is the only defense to the smear. Or you can just point out the nonsense in the smear. So there's a lot of nonsense in the smears. Mimi said exactly, library over movies. I like the metaphor. Yeah, so if you really think about that, then all of you would understand why most people are not logical. You ever seen a line of people outside of a library? Never. You've never seen a line outside of a library. Ever, ever, ever. But you do see lines outside of the movies. Mocha said, I'm cleaning my kitchen. I'm happy you are talking. Thank you. I'm about to stop in a minute because I got to get on a call. Drea said, I think Trump has revealed who most of America is, period. Well, who is that, Dr. Drea? You didn't say. Who is most of America? Milkshake said social media 40-year. Oh, I can't see the rest of your name. Thank you for the alien pet. Thank you. TikTok has some creative gifts you can give here. That's exactly why social media started to push short form content. Yeah, because people want the quick thing and it works. I talked about that in one of my lives I did in the past. Tulsi is great. Marilyn said Tulsi is great and very impressed with her stand with The View. Yeah, if you go on The View and you're conservative, they're going to attack you. So you got to be ready for it. Appreciate you, Brittany, for your moderation. Thank you, Brittany, my moderator. She's been helping me all week. People can't sit through a 2-minute video anymore. Yes, very true. All right, I'm going to take a couple more questions, then we're over. Then we'll be over. Koda said 58 isn't old. Yes, I generally agree with you. What I mean is how he looked. He looked young when he came in. He looked old when he got out. That's what I mean. Caro Z said, you will have my vote. Your logic is impeccable. Well, thank you. All right, maybe I might decide. What should I run? Is it Democrat or a Republican? Kay said, why do you need points if you're speaking the truth? Because the reason is the truth takes longer time to be comprehended. It takes longer to comprehend the truth than it takes to comprehend emotion. So if I just tell you something negative about my opponent, I could tell you in 30 seconds. But to tell you the truth, I got to spell it out and help you understand it. Most people don't have a mental capacity to absorb the truth. It takes time to absorb the truth. As the saying goes, a lie goes around the world twice before the truth finishes putting on his pants. Truth takes time to be understood. And most people don't think, and they don't want to invest time in anything. Dr. Dre said Obama could never have gotten reelected with Trump's record. I agree with that. What's your point? Obama and Trump are two different people. And Trump would not have gotten elected if he was like Obama, just like Obama would not got elected if he was Trump. So 50% of adults can't read above 6th grade level, 21% can't read right at all. J-Man, correct. Right. So that means you got to be very simple when you talk. You can't go over people's heads. J-Man said, my only question is how much of Project 2025 do I think will be implemented successfully? Well, Trump said that's not his plan. So how much do I think he would actually do? I say of all the points that I mentioned, I say somewhere around 30 to 40% he may actually use. Even though he said that's not his plan, doesn't mean he doesn't have similar ideas. Someone said I should run as a Republican. All right, well, I'm already going to get attacked by a bunch of black people for running as a Republican. So we'll see how many votes I can win. Thank you, Rachel. Yes, healthy conversation. That's what we want to have. Yes, that's correct. All right, everybody. So let you all know what I do here. I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I don't know why it feels like Friday today. Today is Thursday. Tomorrow I'll be live again at 8 a.m. Usually I go about 90 minutes to 2 hours for these lives. And usually we talk about current events, but maybe sometime I'll talk about other things. And usually it's current events. That seems to draw more attention than if I talk about evergreen subjects. I have a podcast. I call it a masterclass, but most of you call it podcast. It's called Work on Your Game. It comes out every single day on your favorite apps like Apple, Spotify. Apple and Spotify are usually the two biggest ones. Let me see if I can I'll find my show here just so I can show you what it looks like so y'all can find me very easily. It's called Work on Your Game. It comes out every single day. It's been coming out for over 10 years. No, just almost 10 years. 3,000 episodes. It's about 20, 30 minutes a day. So I know this is like 4 hours what we're doing. I mean, not 4 hours, 2 hours what I'm doing here. But if you want to listen to something like while you're on your workout or washing the dishes or driving to work, you can absorb that show pretty quickly. It's about 20, 30 minutes every day. Those are more evergreen topics. The current events, usually I do that live. Evergreen stuff is most of my material. And again, I have a company called Work on Your Game. That's where we do coaching, consulting, marketing, helping people start their businesses, help people further their businesses, and help people with their mindset as the foundation of what we do. Things like their discipline, confidence, mental toughness, accountability, taking initiative. We do all of that at Work on Your Game University. Yes, it's on YouTube. Am I running for office? No, I am not running for office. We're just talking about the idea, Carla. I'm not seriously thinking about running for office. But Work on Your Game University, that's the link in my bio if you want to learn more about me. Make sure you're following me on more than one app. So if you're following me on TikTok, where right now I have the most people watching, make sure you click on the link in my bio to see my Instagram link and my YouTube. Follow me on both of those places. Just in case anything happens with any one of these apps, make sure you follow me in more than one place. Because anything can happen on social media. An app could go away. An account can get deactivated. You never know. You can get hacked. Anything can happen. So make sure you follow me in more than one place so you know where to find me. And when we got more stuff coming, we got more things that I'm working on that takes you off of social media, period. But I won't announce that right now because it's not quite ready. But all of that stuff is coming. So we will see you all tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Make sure you're following me. If you got any questions or anything from me, you can send me an email. My email address is in my bio. Also a DM, you know how to DM. My assistant watches my DM, so she will respond to you if she sees a DM that we need to respond to. Appreciate you, everybody. See you all tomorrow. We out of here. Work on your game. O-Dog over on YouTube said, why should you get penalized because you make more money? I don't know what part you're talking about. Trump didn't drive us into a recession. I don't know if you're talking to me or you're talking to somebody else. But all right, we are out of here, folks, on YouTube.